Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Maria Givler, and I am one of PEHP Healthy Utah's registered dietitians. And today we will discuss some of the fascinating components of digestive health and how beneficial bacteria and nutrition play a role. At the end of this slide set, I have included many references. So my job is to research and take the science and interpret it for application. So please look at my references, and if you have further questions or would like any more information, you can email me, and I've included that also at the end. Here is our format for today. We're going to look at digestion and the microflora present in the digestive tract. We're going to discuss 4 basic types of immunity, and there again, we could go so much deeper into immunity, but for today, we're just going to talk about the 4 basic types. We will look at pre- and probiotics. These are hot topics and words that we've all heard, but we will discuss them, and your understanding will increase. We'll look at probiotic products. We'll discuss briefly the benefits of fiber overall, as well as antibiotic use and antibacterial use. So lots of good stuff today. I wanted to start with a quick anatomy lesson. I don't know if you've had a recent anatomy lesson, but I think it's very beneficial to understand what is going on in the body in relation to digestion, because that's, of course, our topic. Digestion begins in the mouth, and we chew and we mix and churn, and then the food begins to break down. Our salivary glands produce saliva, and saliva contains many components, lubricants, and also enzymes and antibodies. So anytime I mention antibodies, just remember that. You don't think of the saliva as something that carries antibodies, but it does. Our food then travels down the pharynx to the esophagus, and peristalsis helps to get things moving, and those are muscular waves that move food throughout down to the stomach. And our stomach is a holding tank where food continues then to break down, and it's converted to something called chyme, and that's partially digested food. And from the stomach, the food moves to the small intestine, and that's where complete digestion and absorption of nutrients occurs. And then part of what the large intestine does is to help with waste products, as well as absorbing electrolytes and water from the foods that we eat. So this is the digestive tract. Everything that I've just explained, and the mouse is just showing all of these things. The surface area of the gastrointestinal tract is about the size of a tennis court. So our bodies are amazing machines, and we don't realize how much is really going on until we talk about it. Now, some of the other organs here are listed, or on the slide. There's the liver. The liver is crucial for digestion because it produces bile, and that helps to break down fat for digestion. It also produces cholesterol and special proteins that carry fats throughout the body. It stores and releases glucose. It clears the blood of harmful substances. It stores iron, and it also produces immune factors. The gallbladder is a storage place for bile, and then it releases it. And the pancreas is nestled right there, that little yellow thing, and it has 2 main functions. It produces enzymes that help with digestion, and then it also, of course, helps to regulate blood sugar. It helps to lower blood sugar as it secretes insulin, and then it also produces something called glucagon, and that helps to raise blood sugar. So a lot going on in these precious bodies of ours. Well, how many cells are in the body? About 10 trillion. And a cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism, and it has a nucleus. We also have something called microbes, and these are single-cell organisms, and they include something, or microbes are fungi and bacteria. And bacteria, they fall into a category of life called the prokaryotes, and they contain DNA, but it's not included in a nucleus. So two different things going on, cells and microbes. The cells, we have 10 trillion. We have 100 trillion microbes. So we have a lot more in the category of bacteria going on in the body than even what is contained as cells. The microbes we host outnumber our cells 10 to 1. Collectively, these microbes are known as microflora. And they are, 80% of them live in the intestinal tract. And they are important for the immune system. Okay, so the rest live elsewhere in the digestive system, on the skin, in the lungs, in the female reproductive tract. And then the bones, heart, kidneys, and other internal organs are normally free of microbes unless they are infected. So just remember that we have a lot of microbes, and that most of them that are important to the immune system live in the intestinal tract. Now let's talk a little bit about immunity. And we've talked about digestion. We're going to talk about immunity. This all interrelates. So these are stepping stones to the probiotics that we will talk about. The human body works in a synergistic fashion to keep us alive and functioning well. And this bacteria, this microflora that I mentioned, is part of the immune response. And that's the last thing we'll talk about. But first we're going to talk about 3 other areas of immunity. And the first one is the non-specific immune response, or the innate immune response, humoral and cell-mediated immunity, and then we'll get into probiotics. So the non-specific immune response includes things like our skin, reflexes, enzymes, cilia, mucus, and digestive juices. And the role of the non-specific immunity includes a barrier system to keep the unwanted stuff out. And the skin is our largest non-specific responder. It's the outermost portion of the skin that serves as the foremost barrier, and it is made of dead cells, about 15 to 20 layers of dead cells, and the cells are filled with keratin. And the skin does a fabulous job of keeping foreign invaders out. And then you think about things like coughing and choking and blinking our eyes, and those things protect us from irritants and unwanted particles. Choking keeps food in the esophagus instead of being aspirated into the lungs. And then there are enzymes called lysosomes that are found in tears, in nasal secretions, and sweat. And these enzymes have the ability to break down the walls of bacterial cells, the ones that we don't want. And then you think of, fun topics like nose hairs and earwax and mucus, and these things, they can be pesky, but they are crucial protectors. Hairs secrete something called sebum, and that contains components that stop bacteria from reproducing. Earwax has the ability to trap bacteria and stop the bacteria from growing. And then cilia are these hair-like things that project from a cell, and they can clear away dust and other materials. They're sort of like a good broom. And then they have the ability to move mucus over body surfaces. Mucus is sticky, and it's sticky because it contains mucin, and it can trap stuff, but it also contains these protective white blood cells. And then you look in the stomach, and the stomach has a pH level of about 2, and that's because there are acidic things in there like gastrin and peptic acid and hydrochloric acid, and this acidity can kill and damage many bacteria. So this is just one aspect of immunity. The second area of immunity involves the B cells and the T cells. And so now we're going to watch a little video that it gives a nice explanation of our B and T cells. If for some reason you cannot see this right now, up in your on your screen, you can click on immune response video. My cursor's going there right now. So don't worry if you can't get everything right now. And there's some pretty nice, majestic music that gets this started. So we'll watch this now.
Special white blood cells, called lymphocytes, play a key role in the immune system's response to foreign invaders. There are two main groups, both of which form in bone marrow. One group, called T lymphocytes, or T cells, migrates to a gland called the thymus. Influenced by hormones, they mature there into several types of cells, including helper, killer, and suppressor cells. These different types work together to attack foreign invaders. They provide what's called cell-mediated immunity, which can become deficient in persons with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. HIV attacks and destroys helper T cells. The other group of lymphocytes are called B lymphocytes, or B cells. They mature in the bone marrow and gain the ability to recognize specific foreign invaders. Mature B cells migrate through the body fluids to the lymph nodes, spleen, and blood. In Latin, body fluids were known as humors, so B cells provide what's known as humoral immunity. B cells and T cells both circulate freely in blood and lymph, searching for foreign invaders.
But just basic information, but really interesting about what is going on in our body. So the B and T cells basically are in charge of monitoring and searching and destroying the unwanted guests that have the potential to enter the body. All right, so now let's talk about how probiotics fit in with all of this. And the definition of a probiotic is a food or a supplement that contains live bacteria that either replaces or adds to the beneficial bacteria present in the GI tract. And probiotics partner with the immune system to organize strategies for dealing with toxins and pathogens. So there is a lot of communication going on within the body systems, and one of the biggest benefactors of our immune system are the healthy bacteria in the gut. Along with that partnership that helps to keep us healthy and safe, probiotics secrete certain key nutrients needed by the host's immune system and metabolism, including some B vitamins and vitamin K. So these bacteria have some pretty weighty jobs to keep us well. The previous slide, this is Bifidobacterium, just picture of the cellular structure, and then this is Lactobacillus. And the references at the end of this presentation give credit to those who took these pictures. So the bacteria in the gut vary, and they are actually affected by what we eat, how old we are, where we live, and different environmental factors that present themselves in our lives. They are also affected by antibiotic use. Now, 80% of the microflora exist in the GI tract. 99% of the microflora are bacteria. And of those 99%, there may be 500 to 1,000 different species of bacteria. They differ in size, shape, color, and growth rate, even though they're single cell forms of life. Of the remaining microbes, so the smaller percentage, the 1%, almost all of these are yeasts, which is a type of fungus. And so having the right balance of healthy bacteria is very important because it keeps the yeast in check. If there is a disturbance and yeast proliferates, it can cause some problems like diarrhea, vaginal yeast infections, and thrush. So having the proper balance is essential. So how can we do that? We can be familiar with two areas of nutrition that can help support a healthy gut. And the first thing is a prebiotic. And the definition of a prebiotic is a carbohydrate compound, primarily an oligosaccharide, which is, that definition is just a small number of simple sugars. And these prebiotics are known to resist digestion in the small intestine. So it sounds a lot like fiber, which it is, and I'll explain part of that in a minute. So when the prebiotic reaches the colon, they are fermented by gut microflora, and they also stimulate the bacteria for growth, helping the bacteria do what it needs to do. And two of the main bacteria are the bifidobacterium and the lactobacilli, and those were the two in the pictures that we just saw. So all prebiotics are fiber, but not all fiber is classified as a prebiotic. To merit the definition of a prebiotic, it has to have some components. The first is it has to be able to withstand gastric acidity and absorption. So it has to get beyond the acidic environment in the stomach. The second thing is it has to be fermentable by the intestinal microflora. And then thirdly, it has to help stimulate the growth and activity of the intestinal bacteria. And the bacteria primarily associated with health and wellness. So if you look at this list of prebiotics, these are things that we have the capability of eating every day. Asparagus, especially now, it's springtime, and so it's in season and it's less expensive. Leeks are wonderful. They're underutilized, but I have some great recipes for them. If you are interested, you can email me. As a nutrition professional, I'm always encouraging whole grains. Stick with whole grains, and that's because the whole grains contain all of the beneficial components that lead to health, and in this case, whole wheat acts as a prebiotic. Garlic, onions, oats, and soybeans are other common foods that we can partake of every day as part of a healthy diet. Now, some of these other things, a Jerusalem artichoke, I'm going to show you a picture of that in a minute. It is also classified as a prebiotic. It's not widely consumed, but it is available. Probably not as widespread as the other foods, but if you're really desirous to partake, you can find Jerusalem artichokes. And then I'm going to talk about chicory root as well, and that is a source of inulin fiber. But for the most part, I want to focus on the foods that are available easily, okay? Then we have something called resistant starch. This is another type of fiber, and it resists digestion in the gut, and it also acts as this prebiotic. And there again, let's look at the things that are available to us. Bananas, slightly green bananas are better sources of the resistant starch. Whole grains, including rolled oats, pearl barley, and brown rice. I would just like to mention here that pearl barley is it's refined. And so yes, it does contain the fiber that is not digested, but if you use whole barley, that is it's a better form. It has more of it's a whole grain. So yes, pearl contains the resistant starch, but I would encourage whole barley because you're getting more of the whole grain and the other sources of fiber. White beans and chickpeas are great sources, lentils, and yams, and then something else called this high maize resistant starch, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, this is a picture of the Jerusalem artichoke. It looks nothing like an artichoke. It looks more like ginger root. It got its name actually from a lazy pronunciation based on an Italian word that describes the sunflower. So laziness sort of gave the Jerusalem artichoke its name. But that's what it looks like. And then this is chicory root. It almost looks like a carrot or a parsnip. And just some information about these foods. They are high in fiber. And so people who aren't used to high fiber diets, if you start eating a lot of this stuff immediately, you are going to have some digestive disturbance. So as with anything, like if you go from a low fiber diet and you want to increase to a high fiber diet, which I would recommend for the prebiotics and for the other benefits of fiber, just do so gradually and sort of dose yourself up. Start with small portions and increase so your digestive tract has the capability to adjust, and it will. Another thing about this chicory root is it is boiled down and processed, and food manufacturers are adding chicory root to all kinds of things, granola bars and margarines and just other products that you typically wouldn't find chicory root in. And why they're doing that is because it is a source of this prebiotic. But what happens is when you get it in all kinds of foods that you're not aware of, it can cause some gas and just some of the other ramifications of fiber. So food additives can be beneficial, but when you get fiber in the whole food, like listed on our lovely listing here, our bodies have the capability of digesting in doses that allow us to adapt a little more easily. But I just wanted to give you some examples of these resistant starches and inulin, and that is the fiber that is contained here. So look on your ingredient labels, and if you see chicory root extract, you know that that food manufacturer is adding inulin because it is a form of this fiber that is classified as a prebiotic. High maize resistant starch is an example of something that you can purchase and actually use with regular flour in baked goods, or you can add it to oatmeal or smoothies. And what it does is it just adds fiber. It is that resistant, but it's classified as a resistant starch. And so you have that option if you would like to start adding that gradually into things. There again, be mindful that fiber does take some adaptation in the GI tract. So just don't go crazy if you're not used to this stuff. Okay, so what is the relationship between prebiotics and probiotics? The probiotics contain the bacteria. And some of these foods that contain the healthy bacteria are yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut and pickles, kimchi, miso, tempeh, and kombucha. And we're going to talk about all of these in the time that we have left. So yogurt is probably the most accessible probiotic that we have. And the prebiotics act as, in a very simplified explanation, a food source for the probiotic. So the prebiotics are helping to feed the bacteria, this healthy bacteria, so they can flourish and exist in the gut in a healthy manner. So back to yogurt, very accessible and inexpensive. An inexpensive probiotic. It is utilized by the gut very nicely. Just a couple of things to think of when you are ready to purchase your yogurt. You want to use yogurt by the date on the container. So the healthy bacteria basically lasts 3 to 5 weeks in refrigerated yogurt. And so just a good rule of thumb is eat the yogurt by the date listed on the container. The second thing is choose wisely. There are yogurts out there that are so sugared, it's more like a dessert. And sugar doesn't help the healthy bacteria in the gut. And we know that sugar all around doesn't support health in general. So choose a plain yogurt. Choose a low-fat plain or Greek yogurt and add your own fruit, add your own nuts, and if you need to help the tartness a little bit, add a little drizzle of honey. You're going to be much better off than a lot of the sugared yogurts out there. Another thing you want to look for is something that says contains live and active cultures. And you can also look for the National Yogurt Association seal, which has those words on it. You want to avoid yogurt that only say made with active cultures. You need to look for ones that say contain the live and active cultures. And then you can also look for yogurts that provide a couple different strains of bacteria, lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, among other cultures. I was at the grocery store last night, and the store brand plain Greek yogurt contained the National Yogurt Association seal, and it was forthright about the live and active cultures. So just some tips for enjoying yogurt. KEFIR is a fermented drink, and it is typically made from cow's milk or goat's milk or sheep's milk. You can also ferment soy or rice milk or even coconut milk. And you basically take a milk and you add the bacteria, and then it ferments. You can make your own kefir. Kefir grains look like cauliflower. You add them to the milk, and then after the milk ferments and thickens, the grains are strained out. If you're interested, there are recipes for this. If you're dying to make your own kefir, just email me. I can lead you to some recipes. They do, there again, I was at the grocery store, and in the regular grocery store, they offered this Lifeway kefir. I bought some and tried it. I tried the plain because I didn't want all the sugary stuff, and it's like sort of drinking yogurt. It's quite tart. If you're not used to that, then maybe you could add it to a smoothie. That's a good way to do it, or with some other foods. But they do have fruit flavored varieties to help with the tartness. Buttermilk and acidophilus milk also are fermented milk products that contain some of the bacteria. So there again, it's all about helpful bacteria and the process of fermentation. Even kefir and buttermilk and yogurt are probably the easiest sources of our probiotics, but there are other things, and those include kimchi and sauerkraut. And kimchi it's Korean, and it's made from vegetables like cabbage or parsnips or carrots, and it's fermented. And you want to look, if you're interested in kimchi, and I did find some in my grocery store. It was $4.50 for a bottle, and they had mild flavors, the mild flavored kimchi or hot kimchi. And one thing you want to be aware of is if you're interested in other sources of probiotics, they're going to be refrigerated because they contain live microorganisms. Interestingly, the bottle of kimchi did give guidance as to handle the bottle because of the fermentation. Sauerkraut is another fermented product, and you know, everybody thinks that sauerkraut originated with the Germans, and actually it didn't. It originated from the Chinese when they were building the Great Wall, and the Europeans discovered this fermented cabbage and they thought, hey, this is pretty good stuff. And so they incorporated it into their food system. And so now we know sauerkraut is a German dish. But there again, it is fermented cabbage. And if you want to enjoy the benefits of the probiotics, it needs to be refrigerated. Anytime that you take a probiotic and pasteurize it, or treat it with heat, it's going to kill the bacteria. So if you're interested in this stuff, you can contact the manufacturers and ask how they prepare these foods, whether it's kimchi, sauerkraut, or yogurt. Do a little investigative work. Typically, like in the form of kefir and yogurt, the milk should be pasteurized first and then the bacteria added, because if it's done the other way around, you're going to lose the bacteria. MISO and TEMPEH are two other fermented products. This is a bean paste made from soybeans. The TEMPEH is also made from soybeans. The fermentation helps it, and just the way it's prepared, form into a cake. And you can saute it and include it in all sorts of things. It's a great vegetarian option, and these foods are very nutritious. They contain fiber and B vitamins. The kimchi and sauerkraut contain vitamin C. You just have to be careful to read your labels because they are often very high in sodium. And all of us need to be careful of sodium. And so if you want to enjoy these things, enjoy them in small amounts. Kombucha is another thing that is hot on the market, and it is made by fermenting tea, and it is a brewing process with this starter, and you can see the starter, and you can even see some of the bacteria in the kombucha. And it has been touted as the cure-all, but it's not. I mean, it's a probiotic that has undergone the fermentation process, just like these other foods that we've talked about. But you do have to be careful, because if the kombucha is pasteurized, you lose the bacteria. If it's not pasteurized and it's produced in conditions that are not sanitary, it can pose a food safety threat, especially for people who are pregnant or have any type of compromised immune system. And some of the real issues that can happen include not only just stomach upset, but also acidosis. So if you are drinking homemade kombucha, you need to make sure that you're brewing it properly. If you opt for a commercial brand, you need to buy it from a reputable source. And there again, look into the company and find out how they are producing this to make sure that it is safe. So just, you hear it, you see these products and they're introduced to the market and they have all these claims of the wonderful things that they can do. But honestly, you need to get to the nitty-gritty to find out how these things are prepared, what they actually contain, and some of the contraindications that can exist. Yes, so just be aware of that. Okay, wrapping things up, encouragement to eat a variety of whole plant foods. And the reason for this is the healthy bacteria in our gut flourish off of colorful plant-based foods. And even if the fibrous portion of the food is not classified as a prebiotic, the fiber that is contained in whole foods like fruits and vegetables and beans and whole grains provide other very wonderful benefits. Most of us need to pay attention to fiber because we don't get enough. If you're 50 or younger, for women you need about 25 grams a day. Men need about 38 grams of fiber. If you're older, it's a little less, 30 grams for men and 21 grams for women. And this comes from the Institute of Medicine. So if you're eating things like beans and lentils and vegetables like dark leafy greens and whole grains, you are going to fill your gut with the good bacteria and the benefits of fiber, which include helping with cholesterol, with the healthy fatty acids, and with digestion and with bowel health. Okay, some things that can cause disturbances regarding to the healthy gut flora. Please use antibiotics wisely. This is information from the CDC, but if you are sick, don't demand an antibiotic from your healthcare professional if they're not encouraging you to take it. A virus isn't going to be benefited from an antibiotic. Sometimes we just have to let the virus take its course. If it's bacterial, then ask the doctor, can we confirm that it is a bacteria? Don't take antibiotics prescribed for someone else. Do not skip doses. Finish the whole dose unless your healthcare professional tells you not to. Do not save any of the antibiotics for the next time. You can also ask if tests can be done to make sure the antibiotic is the right strain for the sickness at hand. When we misuse antibiotics, we are creating resistant strains of the unhealthy bacteria. And this is causing some major problems in the healthcare world right now. So it is essential to use antibiotics wisely, not only for the prevention of creating these resistant strains, but also to keep the gut microflora healthy in the digestive tract. The healthy bacteria are so important that there is something called fecal microbial transplantation, and that's basically taking a stool sample from someone with a healthy gut, adding some saline to it, straining it, and then implanting it in the person who is having trouble in their colon. The bacteria is so beneficial that this type of transplant is becoming more common, and it is helpful. Much of the problems that arise from not having enough of the healthy bacteria can be helped by this fecal transplantation. The only reason I bring that up is just to emphasize the power of the healthy gut microflora. And then the benefits of soap and water. We do not have to make everything antibacterial. Soap and water is basically what is needed for good hygiene. When we make everything antibacterial, we're losing some of the good bacteria. So there are cases that we need to use these antibacterials in hospitals and nursing homes and after certain sicknesses, yes, but generally scrub with soap and water. You will be getting rid of the bad and keeping the good. There are some contraindications for pre and probiotic use because these are live microorganisms, and the contraindications include patients who are critically ill or have compromised immune system, have short bowel syndrome, who are hypersensitive to lactose or milk, have allergies to yeast or yeast-containing products, and have indwelling catheters, vascular catheters, or who are on some oral, systemic, or antifungal medications. So there are some contraindications. Talk with a healthcare provider about these things if you fall into a category that includes immunosuppression or some of the other things that I have mentioned. We are done. We've gone over a little bit. I hope that that's okay. These are my references, the pictures, and where I got a lot of this great information. And if you have questions, please feel free to email me. For those who need to go, thank you for joining us. For those who can stay, I'm going to check out some of these questions. Okay, thank you from Healthy Utah. Okay, one person had an issue with the PowerPoint. We will answer that questions to make sure you get the slides so they make sense. Here's a question. As you age, does it get harder to digest fiber? That's a really good question. I'd actually need to look into that a little bit further to understand more about the aging process and digestion. I think one thing that is important is if you start including fiber now, before you hit older age, your body will be used to the digestive process required to take care of the fiber. But I can look into that further to further understand why age might be harder, because the recommendations are a little bit lower. One reason is that could be is as we age, we don't need as many calories. And so as our caloric need decreases, then naturally the other components will probably decrease as well. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, yes, some people have to log off, but this is archived, so you can get it on our website. Okay. What are some good items to help with digestion for people with celiac disease? That's a wonderful question. Some of the things that were listed in the prebiotics section are naturally gluten-free: onions, garlic, asparagus, bananas. The whole grains that act as prebiotics, there are, I would stick with the whole grains that do not contain gluten, which include things like quinoa and buckwheat. There are lots of items there, and I can send you a list if you are interested. Just email me. Having your gallbladder removed affect your ability to digest fiber? I would say no on that, because the primary role of the gallbladder is to store bile, and that helps to digest fat. Oh, how bad is the use of laxatives on a regular basis? This is a really good question. What happens is if you use laxatives on a regular basis, your body almost becomes dependent upon them, and so the natural ways that our body utilizes foods to excrete becomes compromised. So it is much better to have a diet that is gradually higher in fiber and to drink plenty of water. Another thing that helps with digesting fiber is movement. Sitting all day certainly doesn't help that, so getting exercise and movement helps in that process. It helps the process of peristalsis and digestion. So I would not, laxatives are prescribed for certain situations, but they should never be a long-term solution. Probiotic pills, good to take. As a dietitian, I will always preach food first. There are pills that you can take. If you're interested in those, email me and I can guide you further. But for the purpose of this webinar, I am always going to encourage food first.